Oh, snap. Welcome back to the channel, y'all. My name is Patrick. If you like true crime, hit the subscribe button, YouTube. Hit the thumbs up button, YouTube. The more thumbs up, the bigger the family gets. We're also live on TikTok, we're live on Rumble, and we're live on X. Shout out to everybody. Great to see everybody. Thanks for popping in. You guys asked for it. And when y'all ask for something, I deliver. This is an agathon. I coined that last night. This is Agathon. What's your Rumble? It is the mystery project on Rumble. I don't know why, but Agatha May has not been showing up in my YouTube feed. So I'm y'all keep telling me, oh, there's a new video, there's a new video, there's a new video, and I hadn't seen them. So we got like 9 videos to watch. So y'all buckle up, and let's jump into this one. And y'all, I didn't do what I normally do, so I have to like pull the video down and then put the next one back up. It's not all one video like it normally is. So give me a little, give me a little break on this one because there were so many freaking videos. So, anyways, I'm gonna shrink myself down. TikTok, hit the follow button if you're new here. Tap the screen like crazy. Lisa, thank you for the donuts. YouTube, thanks for being here. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe. Y'all become a member. Click that link that's pinned up in the top of the chat. And thank you for the super chats, y'all. Get the super chat started. I appreciate it. And let's get this thing going.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
it's
Agatha.
Time for a new series. But first, I want to say thank you to Luann for the gift and the very sweet note. It just made my heart all squishy. In this series, we're going to look at the affidavit from John Paul Miller.
Oh, Lord.
That was recently released in the Mica Francis probate case. Now, let's all keep in mind that John Paul has already graciously informed all of us in his interview with Justin that people can actually lie on an affidavit. This is the same guy who said this to a judge during a hearing. I have to tell the truth, right? No, John Paul. Our court system is like the wild, wild west. Anything goes, you rootin' tootin' cowboy.
Man, you crazy as hell for that.
John Paul really does a great job of being the personification of honesty, doesn't he? He is just the truthiest.
Oh my God. Me, thanks for becoming a misdemeanor.
I'll also add this disclaimer that I think Mica had a reaction to the anesthetic she was given in December of 2017 and was then misdiagnosed with bipolar disorder. I think that John Paul began a campaign to push that misdiagnosis from day one and hasn't stopped. I think he pushed it verbally and still won't shut up about it, and I think he abused her in ways that would cause her to appear to have symptoms of a mental illness. For example, depriving her of food and sleep, among other things. So let's start this look at this affidavit that's definitely not filled with
you crazy as hell for that one.
lies with statement number 1. John Paul claims that Mica grew up in an unstable home, and his proof is a single screenshot from his phone. Was this sent when John Paul had Mica's phone back in February and March of this year? Well, who knows, because there's no date on it. There's no proof it actually came from Mica either. It could have been any phone number that he assigned the contact name Mica to. It could be a text exchange between his left back pocket phone and his right back pocket phone.
Ooh.
From the short bit of conversation, I'm speculating that it's supposed to be a discussion about a therapist. Mica allegedly wrote, I am very, very, very lucky to have found a female that I'm okay with, considering my issues with women. You know who else likes to use multiple veries? Charles, I don't beat my wife, Randall.
Damn.
In an interview with the Christian Post on May 4th about Mica's death, old Charles said that John Paul was, quote, very, 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 very tore up. That's just what the first sentence reminded me of. That's all. Mica seems to have had good relationships with women, though. She was living with a woman from the church at the time of her death. Her best friends were women. She sang and danced at the church with women.
That's true. Katie, thank you.
And
go Balls. Shout out to the teachers.
According to John Paul's very own words in that absolutely pathetic obituary he wrote, she was the women's ministry leader at the church. So maybe she was just practicing her own aversion therapy, Or maybe John Paul is full of beans and baloney and everything phony.
Beans and
Then
bologna.
John Paul responded to that text with, "Find your man, go talk to him, and if you like him, I'll come along and listen, even though it brings me anxiety, stress, pain, and redacted more." Well, there's a typical response of a self absorbed, whiny little twit. He'll go along with the
Oh,
idea, even though it's
damn.
going to be just so horribly difficult for him. And even though there's probably a danger of his eyeballs just spontaneously falling right out of his head, he'll still do it. No, really, don't feel guilty. It's fine.
Oh God,
But what
Agatha,
about
you
that
kill
last
me.
bit where he wrote, "If you really wanted a man and were not okay with a woman, we could come up with other options. But the only reason you want a man," redacted. It sounds like John Paul didn't think that Micah, or whoever he was talking to, really
Mm.
wanted or needed a
Lisa,
woman,
thank you.
and had another
Edward, thank
reason
you.
for wanting a man. Were the redacted portions of these texts redacted by the courts or by John Paul? I have a feeling that these were redacted by John Paul.
Mm.
Looking through this affidavit, it appears that the text that's redacted by him was done with a marker tool in an iPhone photo editor, and the text that was redacted by the court is a drawn box. The edges are much neater. Also, didn't Micah have an iPhone? Either she had iMessaging turned off or was texting from a non iPhone phone. I'm assuming that since this was a civil case, that proof isn't as stringent as it would be in a criminal case. But John Paul's proof for statement number one should be printed on off brand one ply toilet paper. Stay tuned for statement two coming soon.
Oh no, she said one ply off brand toilet paper. Man, that is crazy as hell, Agatha. But hey, we get it. We get it. All right. Next. Next. Let's go. Agatha May. We're on a roll tonight. Y'all make sure you follow her. She's going to be pinned down in the description. Agatha May Detective Agency. She's fantastic. That wit. That wit. And YouTube, let's get 100 likes. Come on. TikTok, hit the follow button if you're new here. Tap the screen like crazy. And we got 36 more donuts. Thanks for the love, y'all. Let's keep going.
And back to the Agatha May Detective Agency. I'm Agatha May, and for our Friday night story, we're going on an adventure with our favorite idiot, Reginald Wayne Miller.
Favorite. Yeah. Reginald Wayne Miller skips court, an accidental tale. Oh, Lord.
For those who don't know, Reggie is the father of the ever dreadful John
Andy,
Paul
thanks for the
Miller.
follow.
It's been a while since we've talked about Reggie, but a viewer sent me an email that Reggie had written as part of a lawsuit that was filed against him in the matter of a vehicle accident. The
Oh,
accident
hell.
happened on November 4th of 2015, and the lawsuit was in 2018. I thought we could all use a laugh about now, and Reggie definitely provides it. What a giver. His email is to the plaintiff's attorney, and it starts, "Mr. Cook, I received your notice of a civil action filed on behalf of a Mr. James H. Brown." Oh, I don't think it was that James Brown. It is
Oh,
amazing
hell.
how people have different memories. My remembrance of the accident in question is that in the midst of a terrible rainstorm, almost like a hurricane, I came up to a crossing at the location mentioned in your complaint. When the light turned green, I and the cars to my right lane proceeded through the light. All of a sudden, I saw a car turn into towards me. I applied brakes, but in the storm, my car continued, and his car continued until he hit me on my front left side as the cars to my right continued on through the light. The rainstorm was so bad that traffic just stopped for a while. Well, Reggie sure can weave a story, can't he? I applied brakes, but in the storm, my car continued and his car continued until he hit me, is simply pure poetry. It seems like Reggie was in the magical land of make believe, where the cars were both continuing on through the light, but also stopping because of the storm that was almost a hurricane. He should have just thrown in there that there
Hurricane
was also a tornado and a blizzard, just to make it seem extra believable.
right?
Reggie's letter continues. Having a
Tammy, thank you.
defibrillator and a pacemaker, and having had many times shocks to bring me back, I felt like my defibrillator was getting ready to fire off. Also, to my shock, in the midst of the storm, I almost immediately saw the plaintiff jump out of his car and was running around taking pictures in the midst of the storm. For any of you that thinks that Reggie could be or could have been in any Facebook groups under an assumed name, like Betty Stewart, just look at the writing. If it's more intelligent than
Oh
many
hell.
times shocks, it's not Reggie. So his defibrillator almost shocked him, and the plaintiff taking photos in the midst of the Raina Kane Blizzado shocked him.
Raina Kane Blizzado. She did not say Raina Kane Bliznado. Man, you crazy as hell, Agatha May. That's incredible. Where's that shirt, Agatha May? You need Raina Kane Bliznado shirts. I'm gonna buy 10 of them right now. TikTok, help me hit that goal so we can get some more people in here. YouTube, let's get 100 likes. We need 15 more. All right, let's keep going.
That must have been simply harrowing for poor Reggie. Reggie continues. Then, when the police arrived, I was able to crack my window enough to talk to him, and he asked if I needed an ambulance, and I said yes. I waited for another while, and when the ambulance arrived, I thought it was for me. I then saw that they went to the car of the plaintiff and very carefully laid him on the stretcher. I thought, how in the world is there anything wrong with this man after he had been running around in the storm? The second ambulance came and I was put into the ambulance. You notice how Reggie conveniently leaves out if there was anything wrong with him? I mean, besides his head. The car I was driving belonged to my mother since I did not have a
Yes, he
car
did.
and
Good
her
to see you. Thank you.
insurance handled the case. Her car was totaled. As for me, maybe your client will want to reconsider his suit because of my health. I have had to retire from salaried ministry since the middle of 2014. Well, what do you know? Reggie had a little stay in prison on federal charges of visa fraud the same year he retired. What a crazy coincidence.
Oh, damn.
And Reggie continues. My mother passed and her estate was settled last year, and I did not receive anything except a check of $10,000 that was for the church, and it was given and deposited with them. I live in a rented mobile home, own no car or property, receive about $450 a month Social Security, less than $200 SSI, Medicaid, and food stamps, and have been since 2015. I have, on the average, less than $100 in my account after I pay rent and utilities each month, and basically live off that and the charity of different ones who I pastored at times over the years.
He needs some milk.
In other words, I have nothing. Well, I would like to know how Reggie lived on less than $650 a month and still managed to have close to $100 after he paid rent and utilities. Also, I don't believe that the check he received from his mother's estate went to any church unless it was Reggie's church.
Whoa.
As a child, John Paul learned how to lie sitting at the feet of his father. And Reggie also wrote, if your client wishes to proceed, I cannot hire a lawyer, but I have had lawyers in the past who I served as their pastor, and I may be able to get one to represent me pro bono. Of course, even if he gets a judgment, what
Pro bona.
good is it except money in your pocket for legal services? And I'm sure that if one of my attorney friends, like Tommy Brittain, were to take the case for me, since his dad also was a pastor, that on your client's end, it would cost him a lot to go through all of that for nothing, except that is money in your pocket. Way to name drop, Reggie. I'll bet that scared the other attorney and James Brown into dropping their lawsuit. No, it didn't? Well, darn it, Reg, you tried.
No, it didn't.
I also just love that Reggie thought that by telling the attorney that all a case would do was put money in his pocket, would actually deter him from continuing with the case. One more thing,
Yeah, what the hell?
Reggie. Pro bona would mean that you're pro floor cleaner.
Oh my god, I can't handle it. Agatha May is too freaking funny. Y'all. Pro bono, I mean you're pro floor cleaner. She put it on the screen too, y'all. TikTok, I'm telling you, if you're not on YouTube watching the video with us, you can't see how genuinely hilarious this is. Come over to YouTube, search the Mystery Project. YouTube, that deserves 100 likes. We got one more. And TikTok, we got 14 more donuts. Let's get it, y'all.
Bona is a very good floor cleaner, but you're looking for pro bono, you nitwit.
She just has to throw in, you nitwit.
And Reggie ended his letter with, I am 70 years this year, a retired minister, and my story has not changed since the accident. Also, your client settled with the insurance company. So Reggie is trying to use his age and his vocation to get him out of this mess. The truth of the story is that he ran a red light. The accident was his fault.
Oh,
And
hell.
just for fun, I looked up the weather for the day of that accident, and the highest wind speed on that day was 13 miles an hour. Not exactly hurricane force winds. Reggie failed to show up to court to answer this lawsuit,
13 miles an hour.
so there was a default judgment against him for $16,906.40. It looks like Reggie couldn't get any of his attorney friends to help him out.
Oh, damn, he had to pay that too. Me, thank you for the $2 super chat. Happy Womanscape Day. Eon Brooks. Oh, damn, is it birthday? Happy birthday. Happy birthday. We got birthdays, y'all. Put some cakes in the chat.
Pro floor cleaner. Reggie's story might not have changed since the accident, but that doesn't mean it's accurate or honest. Reggie settled the lawsuit and it was shown paid in full by the end of the next month. They might have settled for less, but somehow Reggie managed to pull a chunk of change out of his backside and pay the settlement. Well, Reggie should teach money management courses because it's pretty impressive that a completely broke, retired, almost 70-year-old that was barely surviving could come up with that kind of money in less than 2 months. Maybe Reggie dug around in his couch cushions and came up with the money. I'm sure he didn't get it by asking for donations or by somehow finding it in a shoebox under his bed or by any manner that wasn't completely above board. One thing that is great and also not great about Reggie is that he never changes. Thanks so
Before,
much for
after.
watching. Please
Before,
like, comment,
after.
and subscribe. Is that
Oh my God, Agatha Bay. She is so fantastic. All right, we're going to move on, y'all. This is more about that affidavit. Bam. Let's see what's going on with this one. Hope you guys are ready. TikTok, did we hit it? Tired and retired. Thank you. One left. One left. And YouTube, hell yeah. 111 likes. Keep them coming, y'all. Hit that thumbs up button.
everyone? This video was going to be about the second statement in John Paul Miller's affidavit that was filed in the probate case of Mica Francis. But I've heard that John Paul is extremely upset about the court records and 911 calls being released. So, in deference to his feelings, I'm not going to continue this series. Just kidding. Let's get on to our second installment of
She straight said, just kidding. Laura, the Mystery Project's the name of the YouTube channel. Come on over, subscribe, and then we're listening to Agatha May on YouTube as well. And she's pinned in that description. You can find it.
Anyone Can Lie on an Affidavit. John Paul begins statement 2 of the affidavit with the claim that after Mica had elective surgery on December 1st, 2017, the doctors told him when she woke up that she was having a psychotic episode. His proof for this is simply the bill for the surgery. No medical records stating that she had a psychotic episode. Just John Paul saying that she woke up and was instantly psychotic. We're just supposed to believe him because he's the most honest little cowpoke in the whole entire world.
Oh God.
What kind of doctors immediately
right.
diagnose someone as having a psychotic episode after waking from surgery? I would think the doctors would assign any odd post op behavior to the anesthesia or pain meds before deciding it was psychiatric in nature. John Boy also claims that Mica began writing undecipherable emails on December 15th of 2017. His proof for this is an email from someone who is a mystery. But we're going to need a name, so let's call this person, I don't know, how about Johnella Pauline? The email
Johnella
from
Pauline.
Johnella starts with, okay, we really have to help Mica. I told her, before you two can work on things, she has to get well by seeing a psychiatrist. Hold up. John Paul and Mica were married on November 7th of 2017. And this was the secret wedding that happened so John Paul could stay with her after her surgery. Or maybe so he could control her after her surgery. In either case, they had only been married a little over a month. And Johnella implies that John Paul and Mica were having trouble and needed to work on things.
Mm.
Were they having issues that soon into their marriage? Did their honeymoon phase only last a few hours? Here's a thought. Maybe Mica didn't really want to marry John Paul. Or maybe something happened after November 7th and she was having doubts. Maybe that's why he had to come up with the whole "she's the crazy one" campaign. Her reaction to the
Ooh.
anesthesia gave him the perfect opportunity for that. You know what's funny about this email? And I don't mean funny haha, I mean funny peculiar. Johnella Pauline wrote that they had received a text from Mica. But at the end of this text, it reads, "Sent from my iPhone." That would mean it was actually an email that was sent, not a text. Did Johnella just say the wrong word? Or did John Paul mess up and send an email as a text message and forget to leave out "sent from my iPhone"?
Oh hell.
The text that John Paul claims Micah sent to Johnella is interesting too. It is filled with nonsensical rambling, but that's not the interesting part to me. The interesting part is that whoever wrote it uses all caps when emphasizing a word. You know who does that? Did you guess John Paul Miller? Well, ding, 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 we have a winner. I think this text that was sent to Johnella was originally an email that John Paul had sent to someone during an episode of some sort.
Oh
Then
Lord.
he went in and changed the names to make it look as though it was coming from Micah. He's such a sneaky little rascal. John Paul further claims
Not sneaky little rascal.
in statement 2 that Micah was prescribed various medications over the years, but the most consistent was lithium. Of course, he just can't shut his trap about lithium. He then provided photos of medicine bottles. Did he take these photos at different times? And if so, why was he taking photos of them? Or did he keep all of her medicine bottles and take all the pics at once?
Mm.
I think him having photos of her medication is just a little too convenient. There is also a text between him and
Yeah, that seems like something somebody wouldn't just have on hand. You know what I mean? Like if somebody asked for that, you'd be like, "Oh, hold on, let me see if I can find it and take a picture."
a doctor named Derek. Who knows if it's real, though? It does show John Paul capitalizing a lot for emphasis, though. John Paul claims that Micah was diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar 2 with severe psychosis, and dependent personality disorder. He then provides screenshots of someone's medical records on the My Health One app, but we don't know who they
Oh Lord.
are because there's no name on them. Once again, we're just supposed to take the word of Mr. Honesty. The screenshots show that the patient had an onset date of 2/9/24 for acute psychosis, and then 11/29/2022 onset dates for bipolar disorder, cannabis dependence, and dependent personality disorder.
Whoa.
Now, 2/9 of 24 would have been the time that Micah was involuntarily committed and was released 48 hours later because they found no reason to hold her. 11/29/22 was the time a friend or a sister took her to the hospital, and John Paul tried to interfere. This was when Mica was so weak she passed out twice at the hospital, and it was reported that John Paul was refusing to let her sleep or eat. If he really thought that Mica had mental health issues, why would he try to stop her from going to the hospital?
That's crazy as hell.
Isn't he the one who keeps claiming that he's the only person who tried to help her? Maybe he tried to interfere because he really was depriving her of sleep and food. And what's with the nicotine patches that were prescribed? As a singer, would Mica risk her voice by smoking? In 1998,
Unless you're trying to get that rasp going.
John Paul's father, Reginald Wayne Miller, wrote a letter to the court regarding the custody of John Paul's oldest son, Logan Hardy. In it, Reggie writes
Oh,
that
gee, thank
John
you.
Paul does not drink, never used drugs, and has stopped smoking.
Oh,
Well, isn't that interesting? One day we'll discuss that letter in detail. Mica called the police on 2/15 of 2024 and stated she thought John Paul was in a manic state and that he hadn't picked up his meds at the pharmacy. I wonder if the screenshots from My Health One were actually John Paul's records, and he conveniently used the date of 11/29/2022 as his onset date, so he could later try to say that these records were Micah's. I mean, this is the guy who seems to keep screenshots and photos for years. John Paul's
damn.
other proof is an email that Mica supposedly sent on February 28th, 2018, to some doctor that had written a review on bipolar medications. She starts the email with, "My name is Mica Miller. I am from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina." Was it
Oh,
necessary for her
gee.
to start with who she is and where she's from? Or was that put in there by someone else to make sure everyone knew that Mica wrote it? The email continues with Mica's history
Mm.
of being in the hospital and placed on
What do y'all think about that?
300 milligrams of lithium and stating that she'd been on 600 before that, but her body wasn't
Anna, thank
metabolizing
you.
it correctly, so it was dropped to 300 milligrams. If her body wasn't metabolizing lithium, why wouldn't the doctors put her on a different medication? I don't know that I'd ever trust a doctor who wasn't worried about their patient not metabolizing lithium correctly.
Yeah.
Part of the email reads, "Lately, I am so depressed." Who else uses the word so? Yep, it is John Boy again. He even
Oh,
used it in
hell.
the obituary he wrote for Mica, which wasn't at all bizarre. There's also the word
Right? Dana,
anything
thank you. Tired and retired, thank you. See, Bob, thank you.
capitalized for emphasis in that email. Oh, Jonnifer. Once again, I'm
Jonnifer.
left to believe that Mica was not the mentally ill one in the marriage.
Oh, hell. Oh, hell, y'all. We got so many more. This is an Agatha May-a-thon. An agathon, if you will. All right, let's keep it going. This one is the affidavit 3 through 14 is what it says. Let's add that to the stage and hit play. TikTok, hit the follow button if you're new here. Thanks for hitting the bears. YouTube, hit the thumbs up button. Tap the screen like crazy. Or tap the, you know what I'm saying. Do all the things, y'all. Let's keep it going.
It's time for another installment in the Anyone Can Lie on an Affidavit series, which is exploring the affidavit John Paul Miller submitted in the Mica Francis probate case.
Oh, Lord.
Let's look at statements 3 through 14. In Statement 3, John Paul says that when Mica was in the mental hospital in 2017, he gathered wisdom on how to take care of her. He sent her an email making sure she knows how hard of a time all of this is on him, because why wouldn't it be all about John Paul? Let's say that Mica actually did have bipolar disorder. In this email, John Paul makes it sound like she could turn into a maniacal lunatic at any minute and try to eat the neighbor's cat on a regular basis.
Dear Lord.
Here's one of the statements in the email that stood out to me. Quote, "They, meaning the medical
Jimmy, thank you.
professionals, told me about cases where people have ran outside naked or where the bipolar patient thinks their spouse is crazy." End quote.
Oh, Lord.
Well, isn't that convenient that people who have bipolar disorder might think their spouse is the
Listen,
crazy
Desiree,
one?
thank you.
And it could never be that the spouse is actually the one who's cuckoo nutter puffs. Watching John
Cuckoo Nutter Pups.
Paul constantly try to stay ahead of the narrative is getting boring. Another statement that stood out to me in that absolute trash email was when John Paul wrote this quote, "Financially, I was working with Redacted to get all of this taken care of, but you informed her about how much money you make, how the church pays our house, etc., when sending her our 2016 financials, and November 2017 is all she needs. I guess I'm just saying I hate feeling like we weren't on the same team." End quote. So, in other words, John Paul
What?
was lying his way into not having to pay the bill, but he thinks Micah messed it up by being honest about their finances. I have a feeling this was probably a problem a lot in their marriage, that John Paul wanted to do something sketchy and Micah was against it. I think the most bonkers part of this email is this, though. Sent from my iPhone. This document was almost 3 full pages of text, and I mean 8.5 by 11-inch sheets of paper. How many phone screens does that
Whoa.
equal? Has John Paul never heard of a laptop or even an iPad? And isn't it just a coincidence that he uses "sent from my iPhone" at the end of his emails, just like the email Micah supposedly sent to Johnella Pauline that we talked about in the last video? John Paul
Dang,
also
that's
claims
true.
that he started going to support groups for family members of
Desiree.
those with mental illness. But the email he provides as proof shows that someone had sent Micah the information about the groups. Whoever sent the email wrote, "Hello, here's the notice I was telling you about. Please don't give up. You are loved and cared about. Somehow this will straighten out. Hang in there." So
Mm,
is this person encouraging her not to give up on herself or to not give up on John Paul? John Paul includes another email that he states he wrote while she was in the hospital, but it's dated January 11th, 2018, so I'm unsure what hospital stay he's referring to. The entire email spectacularly showcases what a manipulative abuser says to someone he's supposed to love.
whoa.
John Paul tells Micah that it angers him that she wants to come off her medicine and that it's selfish. He also states that he understands the lithium makes Micah lethargic and makes her gain weight. And we'll get back to that in just a minute. The
Damn.
entire email is so infuriating, and my heart breaks for Micah having to put up with the abuse.
Well, right.
And
Miller, thank you. Wendy, thank you.
this is something that John Paul offered as proof in a court case that he thought made him look good. In Statement 4, John Paul states that Micah's family fought to get her off her meds, and that Micah's sisters told her in November of 2022 that the lithium made her sluggish and gain weight and that she should stop it. But in the email that we just talked about that he wrote in 2018 and just used as proof in Statement 3, it was about Micah wanted to stop the lithium because it made her gain weight and made her lethargic. He can't even keep his lies straight between 2 statements on an affidavit.
Jeez.
John Paul also states that even Micah's doctor said she shouldn't have a relationship with her sisters, but is there proof of that? Of course not.
Mm,
In Statement
Desiree.
5, John Paul states that he told Micah's sister Sierra that Micah had no access to guns at their house. But what he meant was there were guns at the house, but they were in the safe that supposedly only he had the combination to. He also told her
Oh, Lord.
that if Micah really wanted to commit suicide,
Entertainment and educational purposes only, TikTok overlords. YouTube.
there were other ways she could do it. This is the man
Whoa.
who has been screaming and screaming and screaming the past few months about how he just wanted to stop her from getting a gun because he didn't want her to use it on herself.
Yep.
He made it clear
Sorry, I gotta like do that for the dang algorithms.
that's the only way he could stop her from taking her own
Bop,
life
bop.
was to not let her buy a gun. But here he is admitting that if she really wanted to do it, she would have found other ways.
Dear Lord.
In Statement 6, John Paul states that Mica wrote in her diary that when she was with him and on medication, she was happy, healthy, and enjoying life. What kind of attorney would allow him to bring up something in her diary or journals as fact or proof of any kind?
Yep.
That just
Hearsay.
means that Mica's family could have used anything else written in her journals as proof against John Paul. I'm beginning to think that Tom Winslow just really doesn't like John Paul because this entire affidavit is a mess. Statements 7 through 10 are mostly
Mhm.
about Mica and her medication, and it's just a regurgitation of what John Paul has been saying about her family not wanting to be on her meds. And he provides no proof of that. He also brings up the video of her in Africa, where she is telling the story of the gun jamming during a suicide attempt.
Damn it.
But we still haven't seen that complete video.
Mm.
In Statement 11, that was dated January 20th, 2024, Mica supposedly sent a text to John Paul to tell him how great she thinks he is. But that text shows that it was sent via iCloud. Did you know that if you're signed into someone else's iCloud account, like, say, for instance, I don't know, your spouse, you can text as though you're that person? Also, I'm so lucky you even consider me. Sounds a lot like what a narcissist thinks about themselves in a relationship, that the other person
Whoa.
should be grateful they were even considered as a partner. Statements 12
Crazy as hell for that one.
and 13 are about a sweatshirt Micah designed with Mrs. Miller established 2017 on the front of it, and about her wedding band tattoo. John Paul said both of these things happened in January. Do we know they did? No, because all we have is his word for it, which is worth less than chewed gum that was stuck on the underside of a city bus seat, but dropped off and got stuck to the bottom of someone's shoe and then was scraped off on a sewer grate.
Dear
Statement 14,
God.
dated January 30th of 2024, John Paul claims that Mica asked him to be her life coach and that she bought a new Bible and had their names engraved on it. Sure, John Paul, you're everyone's first choice as a life coach because you are obviously winning at life.
Damn.
In the next affidavit analysis, I'll look at the events that led to Mica's involuntary commitment to the mental hospital.
Oh, Lord. And don't worry, y'all. I got it ready to go. YouTube, hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Everybody watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button real quick for me. Let's get 200 likes. TikTok, hit the follow button if you're new here. Keep tapping the screen. We've got the 25,000, but let's get 50,000, y'all. Come on. And thank you for those little coin things. You guys don't have to do that, but it is appreciated. TikTok or YouTube, also click that link that's pinned up in the top of that chat if you want to help support the show. All right, let's keep going. What's this one all about? Add it back to stage and play.
Everybody, it's time to dig into more of John Paul Miller's affidavit that he filed in Micah Francis's probate case. We're starting
Here we
on
go.
Statement
Melissa, thank you.
15 with John Paul telling us that Micah sent a text to her brother Nate telling him how supportive John Paul had been and how her sisters had been lying to the mental health nurses. That's not what Micah wrote, though. She did say that John Paul had been supportive, but she also said this, quote, "We are going to Waccamaw on Monday, hopefully with Redacted, and we are going to confront Redacted about everything that's happened over the past year and how she's been lying all along. Waccamaw Mental Health, Redacted, is the head horse, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be nurse, that said Redacted and Sierra have been blowing up their phones harassing them, that they were the ones telling the cops that John Paul was starving and beating me. Well, all along, Redacted and Sierra said they never said any of those things." So Micah wasn't saying that her sisters had
Oh,
been
hell.
lying to the nurse, but the other way around. The nurse was the one who had been lying. Wouldn't it be interesting to know who this nurse is?
Mm-hmm. Amy, yep. From Quebec too, you say Callis and Tabarnak and Sacrement
John Paul didn't date this statement other
and a boot.
than February 2024, but it's in between the statements that are dated January 30th and February 5th. Does Mica wanting to confront the nurse have anything to do with her being involuntarily committed? Also, notice that Mica's texts are on the right of the screen, which means these screenshots were taken from her phone, the phone that John Paul took while she was in the hospital. In statement
Oh, hell.
16, John Paul wrote that Mica texted her father and brother on February 5th to tell them that John Paul takes care of her on a day-to-day basis. But those texts are also
Miller.
telling them that she trusts them to look after her well-being, and she's hoping they'll all communicate in this group text so everyone is on the same page. Nate calmly replied that he hopes John Paul will be open to these discussions and won't be offended. John Paul's response was to go on a rant about how her family wants to keep her medication from her and that he's blocked Michael because he's a moron.
Oh my God.
Well,
He's
sorry,
crazy
Nate.
as hell.
Looks like
Oh,
John
gee, thank
Paul
you.
did not handle it well. Statement 17 is dated February 6th of 2024. John Paul texted Nate to tell him that Micah's doctor was going to admit her to the hospital and claims she's suffering from a bipolar episode. Nate lets Micah know that John
Whoa.
Paul is trying to have her committed. John Paul tells Nate he's a moron. Well, John Paul sure loves that word moron, doesn't he? I wonder if he learned that in divinity school. Oh,
Damn.
never mind. He never went. In
Oh,
statement
hell.
18, John Paul texts Micah's
Thanks for the
family
follow.
later that day and said, quote, just so everyone knows, her doctor said it
Hey, those ones are in color.
can get incredibly worse. Her sister Abby asked, what will get worse? She was fine when I saw her yesterday, and she said she'd been taking her meds. John Paul responded that Micah was having a bipolar and schizophrenic breakdown. When did schizophrenia get thrown into this, by the way? I guess maybe using bipolar wasn't sensational enough for Pee Wee. John Paul also states that Micah's father
Pee-wee.
encouraged her to leave the county, but he left out the part of the text where Michael wrote, since John Paul is not properly medicating himself. Well, why'd you leave out that part, Jonnifer? Michael also
Jennifer.
let Micah know that John Paul was in the text messages she was sending, and she responded with, I know, it's intentional. You know what? That sounds like an entirely sane woman to me. In statement 19, John Paul claims that Micah called him and said her father told her she didn't need her medication. If we look at the screenshot he provided as evidence, which is the same screenshot
That's a damn screenshot of a screenshot of a screenshot.
from statement 17, there's a screenshot in the screenshot. It's not easy to read, but
Screenshotception.
in it, John Paul had texted Nate that, quote, Micah's doctor called several times today. After they spoke with her, they called me back and told me if I don't call the police to take her to the hospital, they will. I refused. So they told me they are filling out paperwork with a judge in Conway, etc., and that sometime in the next 4 days the police will be picking her up, end quote.
Oh, hell.
Nate sent this to the family group text so Micah could see what was going on. And John Paul responded to that with, quote, let the record show that Nate is the one who told a psychotic patient who's having a mental breakdown that police are coming to get her. So whatever happens from that info is not on Micah's husband, but
Oh, gee, thank
100%
you.
on
Salt
Nate,
sprinkler, thank
end
you.
quote. Then Micah responded with, everyone stay calm. Police are not coming to my house, and if they do, I'm not a threat to anyone's life, so they cannot take me in my home or the church's home. So once
Whoa.
again, she sounds entirely sane.
Right?
Also, I'm going to say that I
Janelle,
think
thank you.
John Paul was the one who instigated the involuntary commitment. He might not have signed the papers, but I don't think he refused to call the police or any other similar nonsense. Statement 20 is dated February 6th of 2024, and John Paul states that Waccamaw Center for Mental Health filled out the emergency hospitalization paper, saying Micah was homicidal, suicidal,
Yep.
hallucinating, delusional, and much more. But
Oh,
nobody in
hell.
her family cared at all what the doctors or police officer thought. Now, no one
There's KK,
knows
thank
what
you.
police officer he's talking about. He probably doesn't even know. So let's look at this janky paperwork from Waccamaw Center for Mental Health. There are 2 notary seals on it. One is faint, but it looks like the expiration date on it is 2021 rather than 2025 or possibly 26 that is on the other seal. Katrina Presley, who notarized the statement, is the director at Waccamaw Center for Mental Health at the South Strand Clinic.
Oh,
Faith
hell. Angie,
Green is
thank
the
you.
affiant and states that
Desiree, thank you.
she is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, has stopped taking medications, having hallucinations, delusions, impulsive behaviors, verbal aggression, psychosis, threats towards others, and self. According to South Carolina state law, the person who is signing as an affiant on an involuntary commitment has to have seen the behavior firsthand. So I'm wondering when Faith saw this behavior from Mica and where it was documented besides on this sketchy looking paperwork.
Oh, hell.
But there's
Desiree, thank
nothing to
you.
see here, folks. Absolutely nothing.
Mm,
Everything is just tickety boo. Let's all look at the next shiny thing John
tickety
Paul is
boo.
waving around. Statement
There's
21 is also dated February 6th, and John Paul claims that Sierra texted Micah with information on how to avoid being obtained by the police for the hospital. That's not exactly what Sierra wrote, though. She
Mm,
simply told Micah how the 72-hour mental
you're
health
welcome, Angie.
hold worked. In Statement 22, John Paul states that Michael sent Micah the information about the doctor and that Michael did it to put a wedge between John Paul and Micah. Or maybe he was just wanting Micah to know what was going on with her own life. Statement 23 is
Right.
dated February 6th and has a timestamp of 6:46 p.m. And John Paul states that the police continue to look for Micah as she runs from them. Why is he trying to act like she was a fugitive from the law and they were tracking her down with bloodhounds? John Paul attached a police report, and it states that John Paul had called them and, quote, the caller states that his wife is showing on the phone at this location, end quote. And the police report also indicates that Micah isn't dangerous and doesn't have a history of being dangerous. So John Paul was tracking Micah through her phone, and he just admitted it on an affidavit. He says he
Whoa.
refused to call the police when the hospital called him, but now, all of a sudden, he's helping them track her down. Statement 24 is dated February
Wow.
7th, and John Paul says that the police are still looking for Micah. He attached the police report when Micah called the police about people staying at her house and about the
We heard that 911 call.
laptop that had photos of her on it. We've now heard that 911 call, and Micah sounds perfectly lucid and entirely in her right mind.
Mm-hmm.
In the next episode, we'll look at Micah's stay at Waccamaw Center for Mental Health.
Oh, hell. Let's keep it going, y'all. YouTube, hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new. We got almost 300 people on YouTube. Shout out to y'all. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, little thumbs up action. And TikTok, hit the follow button if you're new here. Desiree, thanks for the head hearts. You guys are crazy. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the love. All right, let's jump on into this one too. What's happening here?
Hello, Agatha Maniacs. See what I did there? I'm back with more of John Paul
Yes, Agatha Maniacs. That's definitely what we are. Nurse KK, another one. You're so sweet.
Miller's affidavit that he filed in Micah Francis's probate case, but probably wishes he hadn't. Let's start with Statement
Oh, hell.
25 that is dated February 10th of 2024. John Paul says that Micah had gone to South Strand Mental Health on February 7th. On the 10th, Micah's brother Nate had gone to John Paul and Micah's house to get some of Micah's belongings.
Mm-hmm.
Pee-wee claims Nate wanted a gun, but
Pee-wee.
refused to take Micah's medicine to her. I'm not sure why she'd need medicine if she was in a mental facility, but oh well. John Paul also says that he texted Nate
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
after he left and explained that Micah wasn't taking her lithium properly and that Nate should trust him. Trust him. Oh,
Oh,
that John Paul
God.
fella sure can be a joker.
I love that picture.
The text that John Paul sent reads, quote, "Hey, the medicine
Tracy
Mica had
Spider-Man.
at Sierra's and the medicine Mica was taking was not the medicine she was supposed to be taking for the bipolar stuff. She was prescribed and was supposed to be taking 900 milligrams of lithium. And if you were a godly influence in her life, when she calls you from a mental hospital asking you to get marital property, you should say, 'Micah, you can trust your husband with your keys, phone, etc. That's why he's your husband.'"
Oh, hell.
I wonder why John Paul didn't mention a gun in that text.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. It's almost like he just makes up stuff as he goes. Wasn't John Paul the one who admitted in a sermon that he was on 900 milligrams of lithium?
Right?
In Statement 26, John Paul says that while Mica was in the hospital, her records show that she was never abused and wanted to go home to him and have a baby. I think Mica was just saying whatever she knew she had to get out of the hospital.
Wow.
I think she'd figured out that John Paul had people working for him in the hospital, and if she did what she thought John Paul wanted, she'd be able to leave. And it worked. John Paul attached Micah's medical records to the affidavit, and they are also from the My Health One app, like the medical records he showed us in Statement 1. But unlike that first set, these records actually have Micah's name on them. They show that she was admitted on February 7th and was discharged on February 12th, which was not the information I had before. I thought she was only held for 72 hours, but I think that her 72 hours ran into the weekend, and I don't think they count weekend days as part of the 72 hours. I also think that's dumb. The first set of
There you
medical
go.
records that have no patient name state that the onset of psychosis was February 9th, which definitely does not match up with Micah's medical records. The part that really chaps my hiney about her records is this part. It is unclear if patient has been taking medication, as she reports she has, but other reports state that family told her to stop. Patient constantly questioning her rights and asking to leave. Well, I think we all know who reported that her family told her to stop her meds. But
Mm.
where does this mental health facility get off believing John Paul over Micah? Something is off with this facility, and guess who's going to look into them? It's me. It also states on her medical records that she has no history of tobacco
Guess what? It's me.
cessation. However, in the first set of medical records with no patient name, the patient is prescribed nicotine
Nicotine.
patches. Well, those two things don't seem to go together, do they? But hang on, maybe John Paul has an explanation. In Statement 27, John Paul texted Micah's sister Destiny to tell her that before Micah went into the hospital, quote, "I saw her getting several emails about smoking, and she's never smoked a single day in her life. Well, her doctor evidently prescribed her nicotine patches." End quote. Well, now I'm even more convinced that those first medical records are actually John Paul's and not Micah's.
Oh, Lord.
His text to Destiny, attempting to cover up that he was trying to pass off his own medical records as Micah's, is so weak it needs a walker. You know what else the medical records showed? That she wasn't prescribed lithium. In Statement 28, John Paul states that Micah showed up to the church in a manic state. Trisha Ross is the one who called 911 about that. And if you
Oh,
haven't
hell.
listened to that call, you should. I think the dispatcher wanted to reach through the phone and throttle Trisha because Trisha was too busy yelling at Micah and Michael and not listening to the dispatcher. And if Trisha thought Micah actually was in a manic state, why was she being so horribly mean and nasty to her? I'm sure it can't be that our little Trisha Rita is mean and nasty by default.
Trisha Rita.
Statement 29 is John Paul trying to make something out of the fact that he texted Michael about a doctor's appointment of Micah's, and Michael told him he'd appreciate it if he'd stop texting him. John Paul then says that this was the appointment that would have saved her life, as they would have properly medicated her. This appointment was with
Oh, wow.
Faith Green for February 21st. Faith Green was the affiant for the involuntary commitment paperwork. Does John Paul have some strange disorder where he literally can't hear the words that are coming out of his mouth? Because he contradicts himself so much that the world's largest flowchart couldn't keep up with it.
Damn.
Mica was just discharged from the hospital where she was prescribed medications, and John Paul has been yelling about her not taking her meds. Can he explain why this doctor's visit was going to be the magic one where she was going to take the medication she more than likely didn't even need? In statement 30, John Paul
Wow.
says he texted Micah's brother Nate and told him that the police stopped Mica from trying to get a gun and that she needs her lithium, even though she wasn't prescribed that at the hospital, and that Nate should stop attacking John Paul. The text reads, quote, "The police stopped her from trying to get guns and ammo this morning at the house. She has stolen money from the church and put it in her personal account." End quote. And the attacking part was just something about Nate posting things on Facebook. So Mr. I don't do
Oh,
social media
Lord.
admits that he and Micah shared a Facebook page, and he obviously paid enough attention to it to know that Nate was posting things.
Look at right there at the bottom. It says, I call it the talk because I think it sounds cool. Oh, Lord. So good.
In statement 31, John Paul admits he started harassing Micah's friends by texting them, trying to get them to contact Micah and tell her to go back home to him.
Oh, hell.
In statement 32, John Paul states that Micah tried getting a gun in front of a police officer, but then he names two police officers, Wheeler and
What?
Bowering. He stated that the officer, I don't know which one, went with him to Waccamaw Mental Health so they could inform Micah's doctor. And does John Paul offer any kind of proof of this? No way. Who needs something silly like actual proof? He did say that when he got to the hospital, Micah's family had taken her there to sign her out of the care of the hospital. And I think that was an extremely wise decision on their part. In statement 33, John Paul says if someone would have just taken her to a professional, they would have been able to tell in 3 minutes that she was hallucinating and having delusions. Oh, that magical 3 minutes that John Paul likes to talk about. In statement 34, John Paul says he went to Waccamaw Center for Mental Health on February 21st and filled out papers to have Mica committed again. It didn't work. On March 5th, the judge read 2 reports from designated examiners who found that Mica wasn't a danger to herself or anyone else. So it seems like Mica was seen by professionals,
That's right.
and
Thank
they
you.
didn't find her to be a threat. In the paperwork John Paul signed to have her committed, he stated that Mica had drained their personal bank account as well as the church's bank account. According to the police report, Tricia Ross called the police department and claimed that Mica had stolen money from the church on February 14th, but she didn't
hell.
call the police
On
about
Valentine's Day?
it until March 13th,
That's right. Thank you.
which oddly was 2 days after Mica and DJ were seen on the beach. How weird. Mica was cleared of all the allegations that she'd illegally taken any church funds.
There
This
you
is
go.
the time when John Paul started allegedly putting razor blades in her tires. And I say allegedly, even though Betty Stewart already told us that John Paul definitely did it. I guess old Betty needs to learn how to shut her big trap, huh? I'll be back soon with more affidavit analysis.
Oh, hell. Yep. In about 8 seconds, y'all. She's going to be right back. Oh, goodness. Bam. Here we go. I think there's 2 more. This one and 1 more, y'all. And the next one's the finale. Oh, Lord. TikTok, hit the follow button if you're new here. My name's Patrick. If you like true crime, I'm live every single night. Hit the follow button. Thanks for the little cowboy hats, y'all. Appreciate it. Y'all, this is Agatha May that we're listening to. You can find her on YouTube. Come over to the Mystery Project's YouTube channel if you actually want to watch the videos that we're watching right now. On TikTok, you can't see them. You can hear them. But on YouTube, the Mystery Project, you can see and hear them. No way. So come on over to the Mystery Project and you can find Agatha's channel because she's pinned down in the description. And YouTube, we got like almost 300 people watching. So y'all need to hit that little thumbs up button because it's showing me we only have 137 likes. What? Come on, YouTube. Let's get 200 likes. All right, let's go. We got 2 more, y'all. It's getting crazy as hell.
Everyone, are you ready for another round of Anyone Can Lie on an Affidavit? This is the next to the last video about John Paul Miller's affidavit that he filed in the probate case of Mica Francis.
Oh, Lord.
In the last video, we left off with John Paul attempting and failing to have Mica committed to the mental health facility again. John Paul backs up a couple of days in his affidavit, and in Statement 35, he says that he emailed Mica on March 3rd to remind her of what happens when she doesn't take her medication. Here's what he wrote, quote,
Oh,
"By
hell.
coming off of your medicine, you have the devil access to your mind and imagination. In the opinion of my overseers and Africa pastors and evangelists, your medicine allowed you to live blessed and safe. And now look at your life. Look at where you are and what you're doing. On
Oh, hell. That sounds crazy as hell.
medicine, you built the church. Off medicine, you try to destroy the church. Sent from my iPhone." End quote. Who are John Paul's overseers? I would guess Charles Randall is one of his handlers, but who else wrangles
Whoa.
John Paul into some semblance of order? Does he have to refer to his overseers as my lord? Do they live in a remote castle built into the side of a cliff that is only accessible by tunnels that are guarded by trolls?
Oh, God.
Is the secret code word lithium?
Oh,
Also, that
no.
email was not reminding Mica what happens when she doesn't take her medicine. It was reminding her what spiritual abuse is. In Statement 36, John Paul says he emailed Mica on March 6th to ask her to let him help her with her mental health. He wrote, quote, "I wish you would let me fight the battle of mental health with you, like a helpmate," end quote. No thanks. No one
Right?
really needs the kind of help that John Paul has to offer.
Oh,
In Statement
Lord.
37, he states that Mica lost 36 pounds in 4 weeks. Before he'd said 40, but I guess 36 works better for him. I know there was a police report that had her weight at 240, but I think that was a typo and it should have been 140. In her involuntary commitment papers, Waccamaw Mental Health had her weight at
That's right.
139 pounds. I have a very hard time believing that in the videos and photos of Mica during this time, she only weighed 103 pounds. The medical examiner's report had her weight at 140. So are we supposed to believe that she lost 36 pounds in a month and then gained it back in a month? John Paul also made the claim that in her videos she posted on
Fiona, thanks for the
Facebook,
follow.
anyone who really knows her could tell she wasn't being herself and that she was hallucinating. Oh,
What?
shut up, John Boy. There is nothing in any of the videos she posted that make her look even slightly off. She appeared to be calm, lucid, clear-headed. In fact, she looked the opposite of what John Paul looks like in every video he puts out there. In Statement 38, John Paul says he sent
Mm,
Mica flowers, emails, fruit, gifts in the hope that she'd come home and take her lithium. He attached one
dear
of the
Lord.
emails he sent her, and it's just more of him trying to guilt her into going back to him. He wrote, quote, "Since you went into the hospital, you have been MIA. You stopped working, stopped serving God at church, stopped fulfilling your marital duties,
Oh,
stopped
hell.
living at home, and have been slandering me, getting your family to send me horrible things, and have shown no desire to be married." End quote. Well, yeah, that's because she no longer wanted to be married to you, you putz. That should have been pretty obvious.
Yeah, that's the reason for a divorce.
So, what you're going to need to do, John Paul, is to take those marital duties and shove them way up where nary a ray of sunshine has ever been. He also wrote, quote, "As a miller, here is what you had: safe home, wonderful marriage,
Oh, hell.
great job,
As a Miller.
no addictions, great friends, travel the world, help children in Africa, financially stable, and much more, including an ice bath and sauna that I know you love. As a Francis, here is what your family has: no home, unmarried, no steady job, they don't serve God, addictions to cigarettes and marijuana, low life friends, no traveling, no helping people, poor, unhappy, and trying to drag you to their level.
Dear God.
End quote. John Paul is friends with the guy who owns a bar that John Paul also used to own a small portion of, where one of the performers is on video mimicking ejaculating on the
Ba ba ba. Oh God. I don't even know how to change that to something TikTok friendly. EJing.
bar patrons. That doesn't exactly scream high class friends to me. And what is his hang
EJ.
up with her having an ice bath
Shooting ropes.
and sauna? It's just bizarre. Are those the only gifts he ever bought her, and he's just so proud of himself he wants everyone to know?
Oh, hell.
I guess we all know how John Paul feels about poor people, since he just had to add that adjective to the Francis side.
Right?
Using poor as a pejorative speaks volumes about John Paul Miller, and none of it is good. I think it's obvious that having money doesn't make someone a good person, much like being poor doesn't make them a bad person.
True.
In fact, some of the most generous people I've ever known were what John Paul would consider poor. Now, I know this will age myself, but in the words of the fabulous Flo, John Paul, kiss my grits. For those of you who are too
Damn.
young to know who Flo is, I'm not talking about insurance Flo. I'm talking about Flo from the sitcom Alice. And again, when Mica was discharged from the hospital, lithium wasn't one of the medications she was prescribed. So why has John Paul been harping about lithium all this time? It makes me wonder if he was giving her his lithium and telling her it was actually hers. Maybe that's what she was talking about when she
Oh,
mentioned in a
damn.
video that abuse could be in the form of someone giving you illegal drugs. That could also be one of the reasons why John Paul is trying to say that she was hallucinating in those videos. You know, sometimes John Paul is so transparent, you can actually read the person standing behind him. In statement 39, John Paul says that Mica came over to his house on March 19th
Agatha May with the zingers.
and stayed for 4 hours. He claims that Mica told him that she wanted to come home and take her medicine, but that her family would disown her. He also claims that Mica gave him this letter. We don't know when she wrote this or why she wrote it. To me, it looks like it could be a letter written under duress to get John Paul to calm down.
Oh, Lord.
Unfortunately, I know what that's like. You'll do anything, say anything, write anything just for the other person to calm down because you're afraid you're going to die if they don't.
Oh, man.
In Statement 40, John Paul claims that Micah showed him a book she was reading titled, I Love You, Jesus, but I Want to Die. He says he asked her if she wanted to die, and she said,
Lord have mercy.
I don't want to live if my family won't be happy for me and you. Oh, gag. She did not say that. She was done with him. And why would she have a photo of this book, much less show him? I don't believe for a second
Seems weird.
that she went over to his house that night. It does make me wonder what was really happening that night, though. Did someone need an alibi for something else? Was John Paul up to no good? Was he in the middle of some hijinks? Was he
Hi, James. Is that Justin on TikTok in the house? What's up, dude? Good to see ya. Thanks for popping in, man. Let's continue on. Y'all, pin his comments. Everybody go follow him.
on a date with someone other than Susie?
What's up, man?
Or
Us.
is John Paul's ego so fragile that he can't stand the world knowing that he wasn't the last man that Micah kissed? So he's made up this story so people will think it was him. Sorry, dude. We're Team DJ. In the next video, we will finish up this
Sorry,
affidavit
dude. We're Team DJ.
analysis. Thanks so much for watching. I'll be back soon.
Oh, hell yeah. Don't worry, y'all. I got the next one ready to go. And this is the last one, too. This one says the finale. Oh, hell. The finale. Let's add it back. And here we go.
It is time to wrap up
Lord.
the Anyone Can Lie on an Affidavit series.
Justin, right? Yeah, this is literally the guy that drives a DeLorean in a Spider-Man. Oh, hell. Some of those things I'm like,
How dare you?
are you crazy as hell? Let's keep going.
We've been digging into the affidavit that John Paul Miller filed in the probate case of Mica Francis. We ended the last video with John Paul trying to convince us that Mica had gone to see him on the night of March 19th.
Oh, Lord. By the way, TikTok, hit the follow button if you're new here. Tap the screen like crazy. Come over to YouTube if you want to watch the video. Just search The Mystery Project on YouTube. Make sure you come on over and YouTube, hit the thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button. And if you guys haven't yet, make sure you follow Agatha May. She's pinned down in the description. That's the YouTube channel we're listening to right now. Agatha May Detective Agency. She is fantastic. Now let's hit it. The finale. Here we go.
We were not convinced. I had another thought about that night. He says Mica showed him a photo of the book she was reading. If she merely showed it to him, why did he have a picture of it? This was after
Right.
she had a new phone, so he shouldn't have had a copy of it. I think somebody made an uh-oh. In statement 41, John Paul
I think somebody made an uh-oh.
jumps ahead to April 27th, 2024, the date
Michelle,
of Mica's
thank you.
death. John Paul claims that he felt in his spirit to email her. Now, he said before that he emailed her 4 times that day, and that he realized that she didn't even get to read 2 of them. But now it's down to only being 1 email, at least only one he's willing to share.
Oh, hell.
If there were 3 others, I wonder what he had to say in them. John Paul has claimed that in the email he sent, he was telling Mica that he loved her. He does not say anything about love in this one. I won't read the entire email because it's stupid, but I will point out
Oh, Agatha May, you make my heart just melt. It's amazing. I won't read this email because it's stupid. You know what, y'all? I'm going to hit it. Agatha May, I got you. I got you, Agatha May. This is exactly what we're all thinking. We haven't had it in a while, so y'all get ready to dance.
Why the fuck you lying?
Why aren't you lying? Oh my God. Stop fucking lying. Yup.
a few lines he wrote like these. Quote, just remember the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and everything God has done for you in the past 10
Oh,
years
hell.
is being stolen from you and destroyed. End quote. And he ends the email with, recognize who the enemy is. I bless you in Jesus' name and pray deliverance and restoration over you.
Oh,
I think we've all
man.
recognized who the enemy is, John Paul. I'll give you a hint. It's you. And what a
I'll give you a hint. It's you. Agatha May has no filter. And we're here for it, y'all.
weird way to close an email, and especially one to your wife that you claim you still loved and wanted to come back home. I think John Paul is a strange little man, and not in a good way. In statement 42, John Paul wrote, quote, after Mica passed on April 27th, 2024, I went to the hospital on Sunday, April 28th, to pick up her necklace and ring, and was told she had killed
Blah, 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 blah. Sorry, y'all. TikTok overlords and YouTube overlords can't hear certain words, and that's 2 of them right there.
I saw her body and asked them to do an autopsy and toxicology. They said there was no need for an autopsy, but that her toxicology would be ready by July. Well, there's a lot to unpack in there. Let me first point out
Oh Lord, wait, yeah, there's 2 more. We'll probably get to those tomorrow.
that John Paul wrote that he went
And
to
thank
the
you for the super
hospital
chat.
to pick up her necklace and ring. Not to see Mica, he went to get her belongings. Then he says they told him that she'd killed herself.
Healed herself.
Why had he already announced that morning after his sermon that her death was self
Self-induced.
induced, to use his idiotic phrase for it?
God.
I know he's told a story that he spoke to a nurse at the hospital the night before, and she told him Micah's death was self
Right?
inflicted.
Insane.
But if that's the case, why add something different to the affidavit?
Y'all can't even say, like, nurses, back me up on that. You can't say stuff like that over the phone unless it's like verified family member. But you, like, most of the time, you can't even do that. You have to tell them you should come in. You should be here right now. You need to come here. You should be here. You can't be like, well, this happened because of this and this and this, and we're going to be doing this and this and that. You can't do that. And by the way, shout out to the nurses. All right, let's keep going.
Was there a nurse who actually told him anything like he's been saying? And since he was already telling people that her
If so, that'd be crazy as hell.
death was a suicide,
So,
does anyone really think he actually asked for an autopsy? I spent the next few days
whoa.
trying to coordinate with the family by offering them any amount of money they needed for travel. My church agreed to give them $3,500 for travel expenses, only to find out after the check was cashed, they began bashing me online. End quote.
What?
I love how he says that his church agreed to give the family money, like there was some kind of negotiations happening. I don't think John Paul allows anyone at the church to agree to anything. I think he makes the decisions. Supposedly, the trustees have to vote on large expenditure spending, but they don't have a say in the rest. I'm not even sure there are any trustees left other than Charles Randall. By saying the family
Right?
was bashing him, he means the family told some of the truth. I think the Francis family has done a phenomenal job at staying quiet. Even when they have given interviews, they have been extremely restrained. Unlike someone else we know that might or might not remind us of a spider monkey that's hopped up on a cocktail of pure cane sugar, caffeine, meth, and just a sprinkle or two of cocaine.
What the Oh my god. Yo, that is crazy. That deserves some golden eye pause music. You got to come over to YouTube and see the picture she's got up on the screen right now, y'all. I'm telling you, you have to see this. Come over, search the Mystery Project on YouTube, and look at the picture that she has put up on the screen right now, y'all. This is crazy as hell. All right, let's keep it going.
In Statement 43, John Paul says that he sent the family times they could go see Micah's body, and they gave him the thumbs up and then began posting online that he wouldn't let them see her. From what I remember, the only thing that was said was that he wouldn't let the family see her until her parents signed the cremation form.
Oh, hell.
And that's what John Paul addresses in Statement 44. He's denying that he forced them to sign it. But they did sign it, and it didn't sound like they wanted to. So who do we believe here? The man who's been caught in numerous lies, or the family who hasn't been? Well, that's a toughie, isn't it? In Statement 45, John Paul says he told the family to pick out whatever urns and jewelry they wanted from the funeral home. Then he says they'd picked out 24 karat gold jewelry, and he told the funeral director to call them back and switch some of that gold for sterling silver.
Oh, hell.
Then he wrote, "But it still costs thousands of dollars. I do this happily because it's not for them, it's for Mica."
Man, you sound crazy as hell.
First off, he spelled Erns, ERNS. Second, they rarely make jewelry in 24 karat gold because it's too
It'll
soft.
break, yeah.
One of
Well,
the
it'll bend.
items was a ring, and it wouldn't be wearable if it was 24 karat. Third, when John Paul shared the
24 karat magic in the air.
original funeral home bill, he had the line item description whited out for the gold jewelry, and we could only see the cost. Why would he redact
Oh,
what it was?
Lord.
He also used whiteout on the description for the cremation, as well as for the obituary. What I wonder is why he's never shown anyone a final bill. I think it's because a lot of these costs
Oh, because a lot of that stuff, he's like, oh, damn, I got one of these cubic zirconium, mother.
were removed from the final bill. For instance,
That's
there's a
crazy as hell. Why are you gonna be a cheapskate on something like that? Man, you crazy as hell.
charge for 2 funeral services, but there were never any services held at the funeral home. Why did he opt for such an expensive obituary? If he would have left out everything he wrote about himself in it, he could have saved around $1,500.
Oh, snap. By the way, somebody tell me what that's from. Cubic zirconium, mother.
Did he think the extra long obituary proved that he loved her?
Probably.
Was it some kind of overcompensation? And if he's going to say that he does it happily, then he needs to shut his yapper and just do it happily.
Right?
In Statement 46, John Paul claims that the medical examiner's report documented her mental illness and her need for medicine that her family wouldn't give her. The report has nothing about any medication except for the hydroxyzine she was prescribed for anxiety a few days before her death.
Oh, Lord.
John Paul starts Statement 47 with a completely non dramatic, basically, I have lived 7 years with a person who had to take a pill every day, or she would threaten to kill me.
Dear gosh. TikTok just got mad at the live stream, by the way, y'all. They said that it's discussing rugs or regulated substances and it making people feel uncomfortable. What the
That was easy.
Thanks, TikTok. Really appreciate the overlords, not y'all in the chat, but thanks a lot, TikTok overlords. Oh man, it's almost like I'm not a grown ass man on a platform that I should be able to say and talk about whatever the hell I want because I live in America. You crazy as hell. That's crazy as hell.
How dare you?
Let's keep going before I get really upset.
Or someone else. It is absolutely astounding that John Paul doesn't realize how asinine he sounds when he says things like this. Who is going to believe that Mica needed to take a pill every day in order to not be homicidal? There are literal serial killers who aren't even that homicidal. The rest of the statement is a rehash of his same talking points of lithium, Micah's family, and how he did everything he could to keep her alive, and he was the only one who did. And everyone should praise him, and I guess go ahead and worship him
Oh Lord.
because he's legit worthy, yo.
Yep, serial spillers. Exactly, Michelle. Good call. I like that one. Y'all follow Michelle too.
In Statement 48, John Paul is whining about how Micah's family spends all their energy abusing him, his children, his friends, and his church through lies, accusations, harassment, defamation, slander, etc. John Paul
Oh
released
hell.
this after the probate settlement. So if there is an order for him to not speak about the family,
Hi, Montreal.
doesn't this kind of mess that up?
Hi.
Did he think when he filed this that it would be a sealed record? If so, oopsie doopsie. I think John Paul might be conflating the Francis family with the rest of the internet.
Not the
If people
oopsie
are pointing
doopsie.
out the truth, speaking factually, and giving opinions, that's not defamation or slander. Statements 48
Ding 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 ding.
through 51 are technicalities about there not being a will or any other errors. In Statement 52,
Okay.
John Paul states that he's been informed that there are no ongoing investigations by any state or federal entity.
Jeez, okay.
Well, that's not what the rest of us are hearing. Maybe John Paul needs to put on his
She was not having it tonight, y'all. Sorry. She went crazy.
listening ears. And John Paul ends
She's blind though, y'all. That's why she does that.
this disaster of an affidavit by asking the court to appoint him personal representative of Mica's estate. The most glorious part about John Paul filing this affidavit is that it was completely, totally, 100% unnecessary. His agreement with the family automatically made him representative of Mica's estate. No one was fighting him about it. All he had to do was fill out the application. That's it. All 52 statements were absolutely pointless in respect to the probate case.
Oh, hell.
I, however, am thrilled that he filed it because it's given us a timeline of events and it shows just how much he's lied. It's also led us towards the actual truth, as well as pointed to other people who possibly might be involved in John Paul's attempt to have everyone believe that Micah struggled with severe mental health issues.
Oh, Lord.
So thanks, Pee Wee. If he was trying to gain favor with the public or attempting once again to lead the narrative with this affidavit, I think his endeavor was a dismal, pitiful failure, and he gets 0 points. For our Friday night story time, we'll be
He gets 0 points.
taking a dive into Waccamaw Center for Mental Health.
Oh, that's the other one we were going to watch tonight, but I don't have time to do it tonight.
Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, stay safe and
Hell yeah, Agatha May. Damn, that was an Agathon, y'all. Marathon of Agatha May. So much fun. YouTube, hit the subscribe button before you go. Hit the thumbs up button right now. We got over 300 people watching. Y'all, make sure you hit the thumbs up button so that more people will see the stream after it ends. We could get 300 likes right now if everybody just hit it. So everybody just hit it. Why the hell not? Why the hell not? Love you guys. See you tomorrow. Be safe. And don't do anything I wouldn't do. See y'all.